Leon, how are you doing? Thanks for tuning in
Good,
with.
Leonard. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem, brother. Not a problem. Hey, this is a little late, and Max has always been our guy to do the race reports. I
hmm
understand he's graciously asked for um, not to be involved in this one for
hmm
personal reasons. You know,
Yep.
with all the events that went on at Loretta Lynns and before the tragedy with the Moller and their family, I understand Max is a friend of ours, and we
hmm
need to respect his issues. So um,
Yes.
everybody already knows and has already put out their condolences and everything to the
hmm
Molanders, and
Yes.
it's never going to go away for any of us. But
hmm
we gotta see what we can do to honor them and move on.
Absolutely. Yes, we do. Obviously it's a big loss in the ATV racing community as a whole. And, sometimes you just have to realize, what would they want, and they'd want us to keep on racing,
Yeah,
you
they
know.
wouldn't. I don't think that their family would want us to stop doing what we're doing.
Correct. Absolutely.
So
It's-
that being said, we all have tough difficulties. I mean, people have heard. I was going through some stuff with my family and my father at the
hmm
same
hmm
time. He's doing better, and so I maybe didn't get to focus on it quite as much as I should have,
hmm
um, would have. But at this point, uh, we're gonna we're gonna put together this final MX race report, and you were
Absolutely.
gracious enough to sit down with me and go over it.
Yeah.
We do have some things to talk about.
Yes, we do.
We'll start with Kinsey. A perfect
hmm
season, winning every moto. Um, I don't know if it's ever been done in the ladies class, especially in the modern day ladies class.
Right, right. I know it seems like every once in a while you'll have years where it's really close, but I don't think it has ever actually happened with an undefeated season in the WMX
I,
class.
I think she's going on 27 or 29 moto wins.
Yeah, it's insane. She is an absolute animal on that TRX hybrid.
Yeah, dude, and she runs with the boys. I think she could probably run in
Mhm.
the A class and do pretty
Yeah,
well. Um,
I,
because some
I
of those
think
boys
yeah.
in the B class should be in the A class.
Right, right. And then you're always going to see that. It's your top five of most classes are usually going to be competitive in the class above.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, she's the only thing I think holding her back in the B class, and luckily, it seems like she has little every once in a while. I'm not saying it's every weekend, but last couple races, she'll have weird little issues with the bike, and it. Fortunately for her, it's in the B class, which isn't as big of a deal like it is in the WMX class. So
You
I
have
don't,
those seasons.
hopefully, exactly, exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
S-
plus she's coming of age. I don't think
mhm.
she graduates this. I think she graduates this year. Yeah, she may graduate this year. And then what's she going to do after this year's race season?
Right.
College? Is she going to in college? I've asked her these questions, and she doesn't
hmm
have really the answers. So, we could see a
Right.
shakeup there in a year or
hmm
so. So, no.
Right. And she's at that right age and everything. If it was me, just go to school. Go to college, get a, whatever you want to do in life, go to college, do what you need to do to do that. Racing's always going to be here. Racing's not going away. She's got a lot of natural talent. She's very smooth and looks natural on an ATV. So I don't think if she took, even just did a half season or just took a little bit of time off to get finish her education, I don't think she would really miss much.
because she'd probably come back and race some in the summer break,
Right. And I'm
but
sure she's still gonna be riding as long as if unless she decides to move across the country or something. I'm sure she's still gonna be riding all the time.
well, yeah, her dad owns a racetrack. I mean, come on.
Exactly. Exactly.
Uh,
So
that's too funny.
mhm.
Neve Shaw has been working and going to school, so that has
Mhm.
hampered her efforts a little bit.
Yep.
Andrea is not going to be Andrea Berger here soon. Uh,
No, no.
so that's going to change her standing. Some of the other
Mhm.
gals were making some moves with some hole shots and getting some podiums. So
Right.
there's a little bit of stirring in the class. So we could see
Absolutely.
some things or see some more competitiveness next year. At least that's what we're
Mhm.
hoping for.
Right,
I mean,
right. Yeah. I mean, I don't we'll see what Andrea does next year. I mean, I know she has plans for the future, and racing isn't the top of the priority on that. It's more so, obviously Mrs. Stirk here soon, and her and Keaton are, they gotta start with their life together.
right.
Whether that is expanding their family or whatever they want to do. So hopefully she does race. But is she going to put in the effort that she put in years past? I don't really know. I don't really see her going 110% again, at least not for a little while.
Right. I agree
Mm-hmm.
with that. She's got some life
Right.
she's going, and I think that's where her mind is, and that's
Mm-hmm.
expected. You get to a certain age. She's a 3-time champ. I get
Mm-hmm.
it. I totally get it.
Right.
She's got that T-shirt. She can move on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. And with Kinsey, I hope she does continue riding, even if she goes to school. I hope she keeps riding. I hope she keeps improving, because honestly, I think it'd be really cool to see a top WMX rider being able to compete in the Pro Sport Pro-Am classes.
I do too. I do
I
too.
think that would be the coolest thing.
Whether she could mature to that level
Mm-hmm.
and that speed, I'm not saying she couldn't.
Right,
You
right.
know, she's a talented young lady. So we'll have to see where she wants to take it, because
Exactly.
nobody's gonna push her into that. I mean, because it
Yep.
is a big step, and it's not easy to make that commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of commitments, you know, let's talk about in transition into the pro sport and the pro am. The
Mm-hmm.
reason we talk about them together is because so many of the riders, especially the top 5 or 6,
Mm-hmm.
all overlap into
Right.
where the points break down and who the winners and losers were per se.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in your pro sport class, um, Brett Musick didn't win it.
Nope. No.
I was shocked.
Yeah. Yeah. Brett kind of struggled the second half of the season. I know he had a little back injury at Ironman, and I mean, he is getting older, just like the rest of us. And once
You're talking
something
about
like that happens, you don't bounce back as fast as you used to. And especially if you keep riding every week, every other week, whatever, you're not giving your body that rest it really needs to heal, especially like a back injury like he got. I think he just like jammed his back essentially. But I know that snuck up on him almost every race after Ironman.
Well, okay, yeah, he's getting a little older, but also he keeps
Mm-hmm.
a full schedule, working and
Mm-hmm.
maintaining other machines, running a
That's
business.
just it.
Him and his
Right.
father, and I don't even know the rest of the group, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's got to take its toll on you as well, especially as you start to
Absolutely.
get older.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's still got good skill set, but
Mm-hmm.
think about the young man that took his title. This kid's on
Yeah.
fire, and
Right. Right.
I think you and I and Max spoke early on in the year. Look out,
Mm-hmm.
this kid's on
Right.
rails, and
Mm-hmm.
he's got something to prove coming off of that injury.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect Chambers to drop off at the final as much as he did.
Yeah, I don't really know what really happened there. I do know he had a few rounds where, like at Pleasure Valley, I don't remember exactly what happened, but he didn't make the second moto, didn't qualify, and he didn't show up to the LCQ. Is that because he had one bike and he didn't want to destroy it in the mud and was saving it for Pro-Am on Sunday? But it seemed like there's just things kept happening to him at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of had a rough, slow start in the beginning too,
Yep.
which kept him out of there. Miller
Yeah.
was hit and miss.
Uh-huh.
You
Uh-huh.
know, he had flashes of some really fine speed.
Yeah.
JJ did well also, in the beginning of the year
Mm-hmm.
with a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of taper off at the end. The other
Right.
young man that I'm thinking of that rolled into that lineup at the end of the year, his name's about freaking 14 feet long. I apologize. I can't remember. I can't pronounce his name. If I say it, you know who I'm thinking of.
You talking about Tino?
No, it starts with an A, doesn't it?
Um, I think you mean Tino.
Probably,
He's
and
a Highline rider.
that I don't know who he rides for, but
Okay.
he started to come on at the end of the year and
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
moving himself up in the points.
Yep.
So all of that, if I'm missing somebody in there, please rattle my chain.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys all were changing pace and moving around, and it just got to be a real 5-6 way battle, figuring
Right.
out who was going to be on the podium and who wasn't.
Right.
Mason stepped it up and took the title in the pro sport
Mm-hmm.
class. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I thought Brett had enough points that he could have rode it out, and he just
Right.
couldn't
Right.
get a good enough finish.
Yeah. Right. Right. And it seemed like Loretta's was either it really bit you in the butt or you shined. And most riders did not have the luck they were hoping when it came to Loretta Lynns.
Yeah, it was a tarnished weekend in a lot of ways,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, physically. The
Right.
rain um, made it a very, very emotionally tough race to get through. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think mud races are always hard anyways, but then when you
Right.
add the emotional stress on top of it, that tarnish the
Mm-hmm.
festivities. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we understand where that went. When you drop into the pro-am class, Mason
Mm-hmm.
again rose to the occasion. Kevin Saar
Mm-hmm.
didn't seem to have the fire that he had all year. When I
Mm-hmm.
talked to Kevin, he was getting a bit tired.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think the heat, the humidity, and the track conditions just it caught up to everybody at Loretta's. It was hot, and I like JJ, he suffered from severe heat exhaustion. I think he was at the brink of having a heat stroke, to be honest with you.
Didn't he have if I remember correctly when I spoke to you, you guys all came
Mhm.
down with some illness at the same time.
Yep. Yep. So like you and I talked on Instagram the other last week, actually. Um, we all came home with just sicker than dogs. And then I was actually just talking to Mark Baldwin, and he said that he was sick after Loretta. So it's just after you and I went live, I had so many people messaging me like, I felt like crap after Loretta's. I was so sick, and I have no idea.
Well, you know what? That it's that time of the year for illnesses to
Mhm.
run around, whether it be flus,
Right.
colds, or that ugly word that we don't ever want to talk about.
Right. Right. We
That
don't
the
talk about
society's going to
Bruno.
live with for the rest of humanity. But
Right. Right.
I mean, I get it.
Mhm.
It's just unfortunate, and that probably bit JJ a little bit. Beans that he doesn't have a
Yeah.
lot of meat on his bones, so
Mhm.
when he does get sick, it takes an effect.
Right, right. Yeah, and I mean, that race wasn't the first time that something snuck up on him coming into a race weekend. You know, Ironman, he had a nasty sinus infection. I mean, to the point where he was sucking on a nebulizer every time he was off the track. He'd go race and he had a nebulizer on him. It was bad. And just over and over again, so there's some different things we need to work on in his program for next year, and hopefully it's some of the stuff is going to help with his immunity and keep him healthy all season.
Yeah, that's the main thing for all of those guys. We
Mm-hmm.
have to go back and we have to rattle Mason's chain again because he rose
Mm-hmm.
to the occasion. He didn't seem to let anything bother him. He put in the
Mm-hmm.
rides that he needed to, and walked away
Mm-hmm.
with 2 titles. The
Right.
big question is when we start talking about all these guys, who's going to move and who's going to stay? Um, I know JJ is
I
probably
know
going
of
to stay, right?
right. I know of 3 riders for sure that are going pro next year. Just from hearing things and reading things. Obviously, I've heard over and over again that Mason's going pro. And I read a thing online just the other day that Chambers is planning on going pro, and then Tino.
Okay.
So
Because I know Blair wants to stay on a hybrid, so he's out. Um,
right,
I don't know what he's going to do for Pro-Am next year.
right, right. Well, pro am, he's still. I don't know if he's going to try or if he's going to milk out this hybrid for everything he can. He has a production YFZ,
Right.
so and he can ride it. I've seen him ride it. It's basically a stalker, and he looks good on it. So he's just milking out the hybrid thing for as much as it's worth. So whether or not he calls it quits or
I don't think he's
what,
I don't really think he's going to call it quits. I hope not, because he's got
I
skills.
hope not. But I mean, it just seems like he'd rather retire than get on a production bike and race a production bike. It seems.
You know what? And if that's his druther, you have to understand it, shake his hand,
Mm-hmm,
and say, okay, I get it. You
mm-hmm,
know, whether you
mm-hmm.
agree or not, it's not up to us. We're not the one twisting the throttle.
Right, right, right. And I mean, for the 3 guys that I think slash pretty sure are going pro next year. 2 of them switched off of hybrids onto production Yamahas. And, obviously Mason won the championship. Chambers was a solid threat all year. And Tino came on strong at the end.
And there again, it comes back to that conversation we had a while back. Shouldn't they
Mm-hmm,
add time to the pro-am races at the end of the year to prep these guys for the pro class? Second half of
mm-hmm,
the season, they should be adding, a couple minutes to that race because
mm-hmm.
they're going to have to race a couple minutes longer. Well, what was it,
Right.
5 to 7 minutes longer?
You're going from 13 to 18 plus
Plus
2.
two. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
that's
So,
uh, that's close to 9 minutes.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I guess thinking about it too, and another thing with Loretta's is with that rain and them adding as much sand as they did, the track being so tarnished, they cut Storyland out of the track. So it if anybody was just looking at lap markers and stuff like that, for the counters, you're going to see that these timed classes got a ton of laps because they were on a short track. I don't know if them just clicking away with the lap time, how many laps, if anybody's counting laps, they may have faded in their head, which caused them to fade because they're like, "Well, I've got way more laps than normal. I'm getting tired now." you and I both know that this is a massive mental game.
Oh, totally. And there again, the mental strain of the whole weekend affected some people and didn't others, and I think that Mason, without talking to him, handled it better than everybody else. I mean,
Right.
when the green flag dropped, he turned the switch and he knew what he was there for. And it doesn't seem like everybody else either couldn't navigate a good race or just mentally checked out early.
Right. And I mean, the Jackson family, they're all great people. And I've seen Mason a lot, especially at the line, and he knows he's fast. He's confident, but he keeps his mouth shut. He keeps to himself. He's not cocky. He's not out there running his mouth. He stays quiet about it, but you can see in his face, he is confident. He knows that he is going to do well when he pulls up to that gate.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And he's determined. It sounds like, he made some adjustments in his whole program from the injury year and just developed and came out and no, he didn't, we talked about him in the beginning, but none of us knew that this would be the result at the end.
Right. Yeah, I remember sitting in Max's rig at Gatorback saying that he was going to be a threat. I didn't know he was going to be that big of a threat, but I knew he was going to be there.
Right. I mean, at Gatorback, dude, the whole thing was tipsy-turvy with 3 or 4 of them, and we were asking where Chambers was.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, mid-season, that guy came on fire, and then who knows what happened. Development for him, they're going to have to look to new things coming up, for 2024 with being in the pro class with different machines, different horsepower. It's gonna change their world. That 9 units.
I think a lot of these riders are going to have to figure out real quick that they need to learn how to ride these bikes more smooth.
Yep.
You see most of the Pro-Am riders, Pro Sport Pro-Am on a shorter race, and they are breaking these bikes in half. I see pictures and videos of Chambers breaking his practice bikes all the time. I think he broke his race bike a couple times. While Mason on his KTM, he was breaking stuff all the time, but I think on the YFZ, it's holding up a lot better for him. But you need to learn how to ride smooth, otherwise you're not going to finish a moto.
To finish first, you must first finish.
Right.
And the fastest way to price yourself out of racing is keep breaking machines. There's nothing worse than a sponsor getting mad at you because you've destroyed product for no reason.
Right. But perfect examples, look at young Chad. You go back, go back 18 years, 19 years ago.
He lost sponsors because they couldn't keep him on machines because he destroyed them.
Right. Granted, he was a monster too, but he was breaking bikes in half.
Yep. And you just look at him now. He's finesse.
Look at him now. You watch it. If you actually watch him, perfect downside, him on a bike is just
poetry.
Yeah, exactly. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And
but he's also heading close to 40. He's been doing this for over 20 years. He's very talented, very focused, mentally strong. If you really want to roll into it, look at the mental strength that he had to have to come back in the bad weather, make a different tire choice than everyone else, and go out whole shots the second moto, goes wire to wire, and gets only overall of the year at the final round.
Right. Yeah.
And when I say that, it's his only overall of the year, and you're like, let that sink in for a second.
Right, right. It's usually a back and forth battle all season long, but Joel was on a whole new level this year.
You know, I know he was fast at Daytona.
Yeah.
And then after the incident at Gatorback,
Mm-hmm.
almost like a whole new individual came to be
Mm-hmm.
inside it. Rage is the wrong word,
Mm-hmm.
but that you could use that word to sum up. He just had a ferocious fierceness about him, and he wanted to
Yeah.
lead every lap and win every moto, and
Right.
he didn't care.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was on a mission to win everything that he possibly could.
Yeah, and he did. I mean,
Right.
good.
Right.
But also think about this: you had 3 winners this year in the pro class
Mm-hmm.
instead of
Right.
just 2. You know,
Right.
Bryce Ford ended up in second in the points.
Yeah.
You know,
Which
and
I mean is crazy. Good for him, but I don't think anybody had that on their bingo card.
we talked about Bryce though. We've
We
seen a
did.
change
We
at the end of
did.
last year, and you
Mm-hmm.
saw the development of him coming and him starting to
Mm-hmm.
get mentally focused and secure. Did you think that he was going to be second in points? I thought he was going to be, bouncing back and forth in there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but the way things broke down in the season, especially, with Gator back, he was fighting with Rastrelli, and he ended up
Mm-hmm.
getting overall on that one. And then he came
Mm-hmm.
got an overall later on in the year.
Yeah.
Just at a race that technically he was out of
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's you've got and you said Rastrelli too. I mean, he put on some solid rides this year. Genusa put on some solid rides. I mean, you've got some guys that they are so close that if they can just finish putting it together a little bit, we could end up being in a new era of ATV motocross.
I
And
think
I hope we are.
I think Rastrelli might have gotten a little tired.
I think, yeah, sometimes I feel like every once in a while he would. I
Maybe.
mean,
I
Gatorback
mean,
though
I'm
was
not
just
sure. I mean, I'm not
right.
sure. He still was
Mm-hmm.
strong. He was still fast. Or
Right.
the adjustments that the guys like Genusa were making and Hoag were
Mm-hmm.
making it
Uh-huh.
harder because you had to be in the front coming out of the first turn to get
Mm-hmm.
that position.
Right.
And that's one thing. Nick started getting better finishes because he was finishing up there. What
Mm-hmm.
Brandon won or led almost a whole moto, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was it. Not that was at Briarcliff, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was at Briarcliff. And that's not the first time we've seen this happen. I mean, was it last year? Hoag almost won Daytona
Yeah.
and his bike blew up at the end of the race. I
Let,
think I don't know. I haven't followed that program close enough, but yeah, he's another one that just needs to figure some things out to just stay consistent.
right.
Because if he can get some consistency behind him, he's also going to be a threat. He's shown many times that he can be that fast. He can make Joel fight for it.
Do you know if his program stayed the same?
I don't know. I do know his bike program changed throughout the season. They had a motor engine builder change after sunset this year. He came off the TDR engine and went on to a JH. So, and I don't know, I don't talk to Hoag enough to really know. I do feel like he's happy with it. So I would assume that's what they're going to be running next year. But as far as the rest of the program goes, I don't know if there's anything else that he feels like need to be changed or anything like that.
Well, if he could just get the program just to settle down and stay the way it is,
Right.
and I think Genusa's life is stabilizing.
Mm-hmm.
He can, keep the fire going.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rastrelli's happy with his program, and
Mm-hmm.
look out, guys.
Right.
I don't know if Jackson can come in and make a difference in the beginning.
I think it's going to take at least a season for him to really sink his teeth in, and you look at Aaron. He came off from almost being pro-am champion last year, and this year he struggled all year. It takes at least a year almost for you to figure out what you need to do.
Right.
And the number one thing is get out of your head before the gate drops.
Right. Kevin Saar, if he gets his program to come back, he started having better finishes. Hey, our buddy
Right.
Max, you never know.
Right.
Max gets things buttoned down, and he could
Mhm.
instantly become a front runner.
Right.
Because
Right.
you've seen him run up there.
hmm Yeah, Max has some things to work on, and hopefully we can get all that stuff figured out this off season. But then again, it's figure out your program, and the biggest thing that I can't emphasize enough is, and that goes to everybody. If you got a program and you've committed to something at the beginning of the year, that's your program.
Yep.
Unless it's a mutual separation, you know, all these riders don't be jumping around for this to that every other weekend just because you didn't do well.
Yeah, rider loyalty and sponsor loyalty is something that you sign a contract, and believe it or not, the legal system could shut you down. You could
Sure.
end up being sidelined if one of these guys want to push it. And
Mm-hmm.
there's, if you've signed on the dotted line, you know, you're in a motorsports industry. There's no guarantee when you spark that engine off that it's going to fire
Right.
or live.
Right.
Look at NASCAR, look at F1, look at MotoGP, look at Supercross.
Mm-hmm.
Danger Boy, what I don't even know what he broke on that Yamaha, and
Right.
Lawrence, the young Lawrence, or the older Lawrence in the 250 class, he caught one on fire. So and he's spending, no offense,
Right.
10 times.
Exactly. These are teams with F1 budgets, or they may not have
Let's
budget.
not get crazy. F1 spends a lot of
Well,
money.
right. But I mean, these are bikes that cost way more than what our four-wheelers cost. At the end of the day, shit happens. You don't know when. That's life. You get a curveball at any moment, and you just have to, you as it shows your character with how you deal with it.
All right, brother. Thank you so much, man. We'll catch up
Yes.
soon.
Yes, absolutely. Before 2024, I hope.